Good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are in the world. My name is Dave Simmons and I'm the Channel Manager for Enterprise here in EMEA. What we're going to do today is cover off all the new features that are appearing and have appeared for December. We're going through the new features and how Customer One is evolving, and then actually how we're looking at the view from the browser side of things, and then finally what we'll do is we'll have a look at the mobile app changes as well. Things are evolving very, very quickly. Also, we're now sort of looking at the idea that we obviously have to get help and sort of advice and tips and hints for the actual user. So that's a lot of that's been added into this version, where you can actually see a lot of the information, what the end user needs to do. So the user, I suppose the user understanding and the ability for them to actually use it in a more smoother way is much better there. So we actually have that all covered off. You have the ability then to upload images to a service call, for example. So that could be, for example, a screenshot that the service guys need to actually have. We can pop that in now as well. We can duplicate the sales functions, the documents as well. So just to save on typing in and pulling in orders if it's a long order, for example, with many items. We're now able to drill down into the analyzing tools which have been introduced over the last while. We also now have the ability to, I suppose, from the management setup, and it's an improved way of actually doing things. We have also things like the back buttons, just makes it easier to navigate around the system. More customized fields with better improvements on it as well. The pipeline now, we've chopped and changed it a bit, so you can actually have a scroll bar at the top. So when we actually had created a lot of pipeline, and we originally would have had to go down to the bottom to find it, so that's all been changed around now, so nice and quick. Improvement for exchange rates, so you can actually set now, for example, a monthly rate, or you can set it out in a couple of months in advance. So it could be set for March or for April, whatever you want to do. We'll show you how to do that as well. Also then bringing in the units of measure from SAP. So for example, you might have bottles of water. One might be sold singly, one might be sold in a pack, one might be sold in a carton, that type of stuff as well. So that's coming through, and that appears back into Enterprise. Also then I suppose that the final thing which we'll touch upon will be the new menu, how the screen is going to look. So down the left hand side traditionally is where we had all the companies, and across the top. So we'll just change that around, so the modules will come down the left, and then the companies will go up onto the top right hand side. And then from a mobile viewpoint, a couple of good changes in this. The looking at van sales, the stock option to just view your own stock within your van, for example. We can also now make active or non-active the customers, and make a customer or the contact a default person as well. Pipeline, we can now search on monthly, or we can do a current month, future month. That's all there, so we can actually knock it down a wee bit, because originally would have been a long scrolling process. And then in the purchase app, we have the approval process as well going through. So a lot of changes, and I think you'll find that they are for the benefit really of the end user, and it'll show them how to get from A to B at a much quicker pace. So without further ado, let's have a look at the Customer One first of all. So we'll have a look at Customer One. So when Customer One now, it's growing all the time. So last month you would have seen that we added, from the sales point of view, we added in the ability to create sales orders, etc. That was a new thing. So now what we're doing is, this is where I'm talking about sort of telling the end user what it's all about. So we can see now what's happening here, so you can view the transactions, etc., along here, and any of the things that are actually happening. So you can see the grid, what it does, all that type of stuff as well. And there's tips and hints all the way through the system. So for example, if we are when you're doing the setup and you're looking at, for example, company details, we can see here a little eye, and we can hover over that, and we can see exactly what it's for, and then what the organization is, and what type of field we have to be putting in there. Okay, so that becomes pretty smart and helps everybody along the way. So the currency, then you can see currency has been applied by SAP Business One. etc. So all that information is being put through the system. Also, when you're actually looking at it, it's basically giving you the ability then to also create things as well. So, for example, if we are in and we're creating a new, for example, let's take, for example, a quote, for example, and we want to create something brand new. Again, we can do that, but we can now, and we have added in an approval process. So, for example, if we come along here and we look at, pick any one of these quotes, you can see it, and up will come the quote. So it's an air compressor. It's for sales quote number 170. We have the ability now to send that quote for approval. So if I can actually send that, my line manager then will actually receive the quote and they can approve it as well. So if we go to email, we can actually see it hasn't arrived there yet. Give it one moment and it'll arrive. So they can actually see, and then they can actually approve the sales quote for us. Make sure I sent that. Quote sent for approval. So there probably two of them will arrive now once it goes through the system. So that becomes very, very good from a sales point of view, where you want to control and make sure that the sales people are not applying too much discount. They're selling what they should be selling. Also, they're selling into the right area, etc. So there's a little bit more restriction on them as well before they can actually go and process the order. So once the quote has been approved, it'll be brought from quote into order. There you are. There's the approval has come through. There's our email. Let's just click on that for you. Download the picture, and that's what you'll see, and then you have the ability to just click on that. It'll bring you back into the quote and you can approve it as the case may be for you. So that's a nice little feature that has been added into that. Also, you have from the service point of view, when we're in customer one and we're creating new service calls, etc., we now have the ability to drag and drop a file in here. So we can actually select, and it could be a screenshot for the actual issue that has been looking to be resolved or questioned about, and we can put up to 8 of those screenshots there as well. And again, we just put in the normal information, so we can send that off, and we can save that. Again, creates the service call. There we are, the help service call is being created, and we can then allocate it in the normal way back to the relevant people that need to action it. That's coming through customer one. We'll go back into the enterprise, and as I say, that'll be then allocated to a technician or a service person to actually carry out the work for us. So that becomes very, very quick. The other things then we have looking at here from, I suppose the other thing is the notification of people as well. So we can actually come along when we're looking at the service call, we can actually then add an activity against that. We could say there could be help number 2, for example, and we can save that. But we can then also it'll create an email against and whoever it's assigned to. So it'll be, in this case, it'll be Andrew. So Andrew will receive an email regarding the activity, and he'll be able then to come along and actually action it. Okay. We also then looking at other things when we have from a service side of things. Again, we have the analyze screens, which you have all become familiar with. They're all now coming through the system. We now have the ability to drill down into them and have a look. So when we click on them, we can actually see what's the service calls are actually made up of, who's doing what, and again, we can drill down further into those as we go further into it. So that becomes pretty good indeed. And then obviously we can go back. We can have a look at all the different options. So this can be created from, it could be open service calls, it could be calls that have been closed, calls that haven't been assigned. All the actual items that you have in your service side of things will actually be here, and we can see who's doing what, the calls, who's handling the calls, etc., etc. So that all becomes a nice thing from a manager's point of view, a viewpoint looking in to see, making sure everything actually has been, I suppose, actively called, logged, and completed. We're also then looking at, from a sales viewpoint, this is also another great little feature when we're creating quotes. We can have a look at any quote here. And we can also then duplicate things. So we have the ability to duplicate the quote itself. So if we have a look down here, we can see it's a Fuji printer and Hyundai, for example. We can actually come along, we can duplicate this. In will come the information, and then all we're doing is just adding in a new business partner. So that could be Asda, for example. And if they have different prices and if they have a different discount structure, that will automatically be brought into the system as well. So that actually speeds up the process. So if you actually have a lot of line items, you can do that nice and quickly. So for example, if I do it under, let's say, sales order, and we have a sales order here that we have actually done. I know it's different prices. So if I have a look at, for example, here 186 Dublin Cleaning Company, and as you can see, that is 19,999. So if I come along and do a duplicate of this, up will come out this 19,000 because that's what the duplicate price is. But if I come along and put in a different customer, and let's say it is Marathon Sports, you'll see that it has changed the price to 18,990. So that's pulling in the price from Marathon Sports that is associated to there. So that's very, very good from a point of view of managing price lists, customers, discounts, etc. It also avoids the error that you're duplicating a quote or an order and it's going out to the customer that might be on a 10% discount or a 20% discount. So you do away with all that type of stuff. Again, we have in, I suppose, the 360 in our overview where we're looking at everything here. We are, from the activities point of view, we're putting information in again. The notes are coming through the system, so we can actually see what we need to do, what actually is the outcome of that. We're also then seeing the custom fields and get a note to explain them. So when we're in settings and we're doing the initial setup, and for example, we're looking at custom fields, we can see now exactly what the free text is, the number, the date, all that type of information. So it's explained to us. So when we are creating, for example, a new custom field, let's say we were doing it in purchase, for example, and we're creating, we also have the information here and we're adding it in so we know what the data type is, what the custom field needs to contain. So that's all there for us. And all the company details. So that's going through the system as I showed you earlier on. You've got the little eye there and then you have your descriptions throughout the system. We're also, while we're here in the settings, we're also introducing the SAP integration. So to make it easier for the data import, so we can now bring in and then update things as we go along. So for example, we have here, so we'll just take stock transfer, for example. We can then put in a date and we can have a look. Let's take the 4th, for example, and then we can come along and we can import selected. Do you want to proceed? I do indeed. And off we go. And it'll have a little think about things. It'll bring back any of the new information. So as you can see, no documents were found from that import. So I would probably have to go back further to actually create something on that. So that's a nice new, but you can actually create or do as many as you want. They'll work behind the scenes. So you can click 2, 3, 4 of them and then do your importing all the data for you. As I mentioned then earlier on, you can, you also then have a queue status here as well. So it'll show you how things are progressing. If it's done 10, 15%, you'll have a little bar along the bottom here as well. Also, I mentioned that with the back button. So throughout the system, we can actually use this, which is quite cool. I must admit, it saves an awful lot of hassle as well. So like we go into, for example, service calls, and we want to then go into unassigned calls. And rather than going back to the old way of doing things, we just literally can go back, click on the button, and that's throughout the system. So that's a really nice little feature. Also, the other really good feature that I like from a sales point of view is the pipeline. Originally, we would have had these long lists and we would have to scroll all the way down to the bottom and then we move it along here, as you can see with the scroll bar. Now we have the scroll bar at the top, so we can do it up here, which makes an awful lot more sense. And again, we can chop and change the screens. We can pop them in. And I'll show you on the mobile phone how we do that as well with regard to the pipeline, and then just narrow it down and we can search by date, for example. Other changes that we've done in the finance which really is actually is bringing things along, is the ability then to set the exchange rates. Okay, so if we have a look at the moment, we would traditionally would have had an exchange rate. We're pulling it in from SAP. Now what we can do is we can actually choose a month. We can set up a month, so we can have our different currencies. So they could be dollars, euro, sterling, whatever the case may be. And we can come along and we can set rates then for certain periods. So there will be our periods. We can actually tick the ones we want to select. And we can put in an exchange rate. So that could be 1.2, for example. And that could be 1.28. Next one could be 1.3, for example. If we type it in, and then let's put the exchange rate in, and that could be, pop it in as a calendar. So let's say it was April next year. And it'll go until, let's say, just the end of April. So the 30th of April, we can save that, and that will populate everything for us. And naturally, oh, error. So exchange rates, check logs. So there's something there already probably. So I can cancel. If I cancel that, I can go back in and have a look and see exactly what has already been pre-set up. So there's probably something indeed that was set up there for May, or sorry, for April already. But you can get what you actually can do there. So if you look back at any of them, you can see, and we can view any of the original ones there. So if we, for example, pop in January, which will be the next month, income will come populate the exchange rates for you. And again, you have the ability to edit any of those as you go down. So you can set it for a rate, you can set it for half a month, etc. The other thing then, what we're bringing in was, as I mentioned, it was in stock, where you actually have the units. So whether it's a single item, it could be a carton, it could be a container. We're also bringing that in, and that will come in from SAP. And then when we're in our stock, we'll have the ability to view it here. And then when we actually go along to add a new item, we will see, and we can put in, for example, if it's one carton that could potentially contain 12 items, it will actually recognize that and adjust the stock for us as well. We're also then looking at I suppose the other thing while we're here is the change of the screen. So all these items here, so our 360 partner service, are going to come down here down the left hand side. So we'll be showing you that in the next session in January. So we'll be able to exactly see what's going on that. The other thing actually we should really show you here now is the mobile apps while we're actually here. The pipeline app, if we call it up there, we can actually see all the information in there. So again, you're familiar with all the book business leads, whatever you define. This is where we actually have something new. So our select closing months, we can come in, we can get the current month, next month, February, March, April, May, etc. We can select them or deselect them. If we select that, it'll adjust everything for us, and we can see what leads we have for the current month. So great from a sales point of view, just to see exactly what you're doing currently, and obviously you can put it into a month or 2 months beforehand. And again, from a sales manager's point of view, or the management, they can actually come in, they can view the pipeline on the browser as well, and they can search it as they go along. But from the mobile app, at least it can be done quickly and efficiently while out on the site. Also, we have in the van sales, this is quite good now, because this is really now going to the next stage where we would originally have, for example, putting in a new order. We can come along, we can select a database as we would normally do, pop in a customer, could be any customer we want, reference numbers, etc. And then we come along to actually add items. So we can come along and we can view, we can add an item in there for us. We're happy with that. We can then come along and view as prior, we could in the past view all the different locations of the warehouse, but now we have show my van only. So if we click on that, that will then just show the stock that is actually in the van itself. A feature that people have been asking for, so that just separates it out. Again, it's on the mobile app, so they can select it and as they go forward. And then the ability, obviously, once the goods are there, they can mark the order out for delivery and get it signed, etc. The other thing we can look at here is in the sales app. So we go to the sales app. This also now is moving along. So originally we would have had the 360. Now a lot of that information is coming into the sales app, which makes it a much more easy operation. So we'll just take out some of these databases here. We'll just use the one database that are all different databases. So as you can see, all our selection of customers, which we have there, we can drill down into any one of those. And this is where we're beginning to change. So we can see the documents, we can see the activities related to the Joe IT, for example, and then we can see the contacts. So that's all new. So we can actually have a look at the activities related to Joe IT, which I showed you in the last session. We can drill down and have a look at those. We can call them by just clicking on the phone number. But the next stage here is, if we go to Field Jewelers, for example, and we go to contacts, you can see Mary O'Donoghue. We can click on her. We have the ability to have her active, or we can actually have her as the default. So for example, when we're creating a sales quote or a sales order, and we're doing it on the mobile phone, and the email automatically goes to the default, so that will be, it'll be Mary in this case. We can change that, we can turn her off, and we can pop in my name, for example, and the email will go to me instead as the default person on it, which is a nice thing to have as well. So you can see that the sales app now is becoming more of a sort of a tool that actually shows you really what's going on. So we've moved on from just obviously just doing the quotes and the orders, which is obviously still there, and you can still carry out all that type of function, and you can put all the details in as per normal. But we're also then bringing in the activities which we brought in the last month, which you can see, and now you have the ability to manage the actual contacts who you need to deal with as well. You also then have in the purchasing app, we now have the ability from the requests and orders again, which we've had in the past. We can select when we're creating something new, we can select an organization. Let's take sales team demo, for example. And then when we're adding in the items, let's take a supplier. Could be Dell, any reference number we want. Pop in one of those. They add all the items in for it, and we can add the items, etc. And I finish that off, and we can submit that. Approval. So that approval has got above my limit, so I'm not able to progress on that. So I can go back and have a look and see why is that, and you can see I can only approve 15,000. Mike then can do up to 200,000, so I will need to get his approval to actually pop it through. So that's a nice feature to stop people going mad when they're ordering, and we keep a bit of control of who's doing what on the purchase side of things. So that is where we're at the moment. As you can see, a lot of those features have been really designed to make the end user feel more comfortable with the system. It's giving them a couple more boundaries as well, but also giving them options to view in the pipeline, just to view for example, the monthly. Here we're actually controlling the process and the approval process, so we can actually see who's doing what. The information helps the little eyes throughout the system, as well as the show me videos are there to help anybody. So the training, they won't need a huge amount of training. People will be quite intuitive with it. People are very intuitive when it comes to the apps, and now we're sort of bringing that sort of into the browser as well. And that's all I have to say at the moment. I wish you all a very happy Christmas, and we will all talk to you in the new year with some more developments and new features. Thank you very much for your time. If you do have any questions, please get in contact with me. Dave Simmons is my name. My email is dsimmons, DSIMMONS @enterpryze.com, and I'll be delighted to be able to help you or give us a call as well. Thank you very much for your time.